Welcome and thank you for joining me for day 4 of Supercharge Your Kids Lunchboxes. If you've just joined us today, just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a mother of 3 and a super passionate foodie and all about healthy eating made easy. So over the course of the week on this Supercharge Your Kids Lunchboxes video series, I've been giving you tips and resources on certain things. Like on Monday we did alternatives to sandwiches, because we always fall onto sandwiches, so I gave you some alternatives that you can do instead of that. We did time-saving hacks in the kitchen. We've done some healthy baking ingredient alternatives with a swap-out guide, a healthy swap-out guide. So if you haven't downloaded your free toolkit, make sure you do so. Head to live.wickedwellbeing.com and you can get that resource. It also means that you don't need to take notes as we're going through today. And I would love it. So today's topic is allergy free baking, and just wanted to share my tips and tricks that I do in the kitchen. So if you have got friends, family, or just anyone who's close to you who struggle with baking with gluten, whether it's gluten, dairy, egg alternatives, then I would love you to share this video, because I'm just going to go through what my alternatives are that I use in the kitchen. So I am gluten intolerant. I don't have celiac disease, but I feel much better when I reduce gluten out of my diet. And I'd say I'm pretty 95% there. I do wave a little bit. It also helps with not consuming the kids' baking, because I do theirs with normal baking ingredients. So I wanted to just cover, I get a lot of comments when I run my workshops about that people don't want to have loads of different flours in the pantry, and I totally get that. I have got quite a few different flours because I know what to do with them. So I'm going to go through those. So hi Prue and hi Diana, thanks for joining us. I'm going to go through those, the different alternatives, and then I'm going to give you my favourites on what you can, if you wanted to start with a few. So almond flour, which is otherwise known as almond meal, is one that I always have in the kitchen, in the pantry. Use it all the time. It's got a really nutty texture and flavour, and it's just a really great alternative. Another one is quinoa flour. It's got quite a strong flavour, but often I'll mix the two, and I'll tell you how I do that later on. And then, so quinoa flour is just quinoa ground up, and it is quite strong. And then buckwheat flour, even though it's got wheat in the name, it's actually gluten-free and just ground up little buckwheat groats. And then there's brown rice flour, white rice flour. So what I have, where I would recommend you starting is definitely with almond flour. And then in the toolkit, I have got a gluten-free flour mix recipe in there, and it's got white rice flour, and it's got potato flour, tapioca flour, and then guar gum. Now I know that's quite a few flours, but if you go to a bulk food savings place or a bin in, you can buy just the quantities that you need. So that's what I recommend you doing, having it mixed up already in the cupboard in a airtight container, so that when a recipe calls for a gluten-free flour, then you've got that mix already made. So grab that toolkit, because then it's got the recipe in it. And then the other thing which I just mentioned is guar gum. So that is it's actually derived from the guar bean. So it's an actual food, which is great. And it's used as in thickening, so if you want to thicken a sauce or different types of things. But it's also a really great additive in baking, because it's an anti-crumbling, so it holds a lot of moisture and it stops your baking falling apart. Now there are lots of different anti-crumbling ingredients that you can buy for gluten-free baking, but this is the one that really works well for me. So I just add a teaspoon into my baking. Now do bear in mind that some people can experience abdominal discomfort and a little bit of gas, but that's only if used in large quantities. It is designed only to be used in smaller quantities. So that's a really great alternative to try. And if you are experiencing those side effects, then I would suggest stopping it, and then maybe introducing it slowly or trying something else. So all those ingredients can be found at your local bin or bulk food savings, or a lot of supermarkets are stocking them now in the specialty aisles, which is really awesome because it stops you having to go to lots of different places. So just to recap, if I was to recommend you to get a couple of flours, I'd get almond flour, and then I would get the gluten-free flour. And so if a recipe calls for like a cup of flour, for example, and I want to make it gluten-free, then I would use half a cup of almond flour, half a cup of gluten-free mixed flour, or I'll go with the quinoa flour, and then I'll add a teaspoon of the guar gammon. And generally that works really, really well. There are a lot of gluten-free flour mixes already on the market, so if those work well for you, then by means just use those. I have found success in what I'm doing, so that's what I sort of stick to. So I hope that helps. Loved. If you have got any questions, then please ask. And then heading on to dairy, obviously a alternative to butter is coconut oil. Did you know that coconut oil and butter creams exactly the same way? Sorry, I've made that wrong. Coconut oil and sugar creams exactly the same way as butter and sugar. So as long as it's softened, the coconut oil is softened and not runny, then it has exactly the same effect. And you just use the same quantities as well. Obviously coconut oil is slightly more expensive, and just make sure that you choose like an organic, extra virgin, really good quality one. So that's an alternative for butter. Then you've got coconut yogurt instead of normal yogurt, which is a great alternative. Lots of different variations on the market. And then for milk, there's your nut milks, there's your rice milk, soya milk. There's lots of recipes out there that you can make your own at home if you are trying to avoid, the extra expense, and use filtered water. I mean, honestly, almond milk is really easy to make in the food processor or in the NutriBullet, so give that a whirl. And then lastly, an egg replacement. Again, if you've had you've got egg allergies, I find that most people that I talk to have found the egg replacement that they use from the supermarket, and it works really well, and then they might be just slowly starting to introduce them back into their baking. One that I have used and which works really, really well is one egg. It's 2 tablespoons of ground up flax seeds, so that's ground up linseeds, and then 1 tablespoon of ground up flaxseed and 2 tablespoons of water. You let it sit for 5 minutes, and then it thickens, and it is the same consistency and works in the same way as what 1 egg does. Now, I can't guarantee that if you have a recipe that calls for like 3 or 4 eggs that it'll work, really well. 1 or 2 eggs, it works really well, and then it's just a bit of trial and error. Also in the free toolkit, there's a fantastic table which gives you loads of different ideas on what you can egg replacements. I haven't tried them all, but it's just worth a little bit of, again, trial and error for yourself in working out what you found is successful in your baking. So I hope that has given you some insight into gluten-free baking and dairy-free baking and egg-free. So again, if you've got any questions, please ask, and don't forget, if you have got any friends who you think that now that you've got to the end would really find value in this video, I would absolutely love you to share it and enlighten their world. So tomorrow's video is my favourite tools of the trade. So it's not actually about the specific lunchboxes, it's my tools in baking. And you'll be really, really surprised at how simple they are. They're not expensive. They're, just really quick and easy ones. Probably the most expensive is my food processor. But the amount of time that my food processor saves me, and I'm going to go through the different tools that come with it, it is so worth the investment. So have an awesome afternoon, and I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 1:30. See ya.